In the early 20th century, the British Empire had expanded across the globe, ruling over 25% of the world's population. The core of this empire was India, a land rich in resources, culture, and people, yet forced under British rule. For millions of Indians, daily life meant poverty and discrimination in their own homeland. While wealth flowed outward, opportunity was denied inward. Any and all attempts at resistance were met with force. To the British Empire, India was merely another one of their many possessions. On the other hand, to Indians, it was home. It is seen time and again throughout history, moments like these lead to revolt, people coming together, armies facing empires, power being challenged with bloodshed. It seems change demands force. But in India, change would come differently. From within the chains India was tied to rose a man who believed that injustice could be defeated, not by hatred, but simply by truth. His name? Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, a small, old man with one of the greatest records of courage in history. As feeble as he may seem, Gandhi would challenge the greatest empire in the world without weapons, without armies, and without violence. His leadership would transform India's struggle for independence and redefine resistance itself. Gandhi's story reveals how oppression sparks awakening, how nonviolence became revolutionary, and how lasting change didn't only reshape India, but the world.
The British control over India was built on exploitation. Indian raw materials were shipped to Britain, while Britain manufactured the goods that flooded Indian markets. Indian farmers bore the greatest burden. The zamindari system forced peasants to pay high taxes, regardless of crop failure or famine. This resulted in millions living in poverty, while their hard-earned wealth and food would flow out of the country. To many Indians, British rule was no longer foreign, it was personal and lawful. Politically, Indians lacked much-needed representation. Despite the British claiming to bring order and progress to India, most Indians had no voice in laws that had governed them. It was clear the only order and progress being made had benefited Britain. Racial discrimination was heavily normalized. The message was clear: Indians were subjects, not equals. Gandhi entered this world not as a revolutionary but as a lawyer searching for justice within the system. His understanding for British injustice was deepened long before India became his focus. In South Africa, where he lived over 20 years, Gandhi experienced racial humiliation firsthand, most famously in 1893 when he was removed from the first-class train compartment despite having a valid ticket. When Gandhi had finally returned to India in 1915, he traveled extensively, living among peasants and workers to understand their struggles. He didn't view poverty as an abstract statistic. He wanted to live and witness their reality. In places like Champaran, Gandhi supported indigo farmers, forced into unfair contact by British planters. His success there gave Indians hope that resistance without violence could work.
A breaking point came in 1919. In response to growing unrest, the British government passed the Rowlatt Act, meaning Indians could be imprisoned without trial. Gandhi stepped up to this and called for peaceful protest. As a response, the British troops opened fire on an unarmed crowd in Jallianwala Bagh, killing hundreds. The massacre of peaceful protesters sent shockwaves across India. The little trust left in British morality had collapsed. For Gandhi, this moment marked a turning point, but not towards revenge or violence. His response was rooted in a philosophy he had been developing for years, Satyagraha, meaning truth force. Satyagraha is not a passive resistance. It's a moral strategy based on the belief that unjust systems survive only when people cooperate with them. Gandhi's philosophy is drawn from multiple influences, from Hinduism and Jainism. He adopted ahimsa, or non-violence toward all living beings. From Buddhism, he drew ideas of self-discipline, detachment from his ego, and the belief that when suffering is endured, one could awaken moral understanding in others. It was after the massacre that Gandhi concluded that cooperation with British rule was itself immoral. India's reaction was no longer scattered throughout rage, no longer headed towards bloodshed, and no longer walking the path of hatred Britain had taught them. This philosophy had transformed anger into purpose and laid the foundation for a revolution that would challenge the empire, not through force, but through conscience and humanity. Gandhi believed that violence was only replacing one form of oppression with another. So, when he introduced Satyagraha, a revolution was sparked, unlike any before it. In the non-cooperation movement, Gandhi called Indians to withdraw support from British institutions. As a result, people boycotted schools, courts, and goods. They burned foreign clothing and spun their own cloth, reclaiming economic independence. Yes, the British government still had their soldiers and laws, but it was losing legitimacy. The most powerful symbol of this revolution came in 1930. British law made it illegal for Indians to produce their own salt in an attempt to force them to buy heavily taxed British salt instead. Gandhi's response? He began a 240-mile march to the sea. Day after day, people joined him. Villagers, workers, women, and children. When Gandhi reached the shore and lifted a handful of salt from the water, he broke the law with a simple act. Across India, millions followed. British prisons filled, but the movement only grew stronger. The empire responded with arrests and violence, yet each crackdown revealed the moral weakness of British rule. Gandhi had transformed resistance into a mass revolution built on human decency.
After the Second World War, Britain was exhausted, both economically and politically. India, however, was united in 1947. After decades of struggle, Britain's rule over India came to an end. Independence marked a profound reform, but Gandhi's vision went far beyond politic borders. He fought against sexism, promoted religion unity, and continued to call for peace until his last breath. However, his influence did not end with India, nor did not end with his death. His method inspired reform movements around the world. Martin Luther King Jr. used nonviolent resistance to challenge segregation in the United States. Nelson Mandela drew from Gandhi's philosophy in the fight against apartheid in South Africa. Through reform, Gandhi proved that nonviolence was not passive, it was transformative.